Okay, well, we are gonna go ahead and get started because I do not want to waste any of y'all's time. I know you're here to learn how to use real estate investing to travel the world, which is my favorite thing in the world to do. And it's exactly what I'm doing right now. So I can't wait to just share the ins and outs of it with you and really just kind of dive deep. So let's go ahead and get started. Just so you know, if you could keep yourselves on mute for the first portion, there will be a Q&A at the end. I'll just, yep, there we go. But perfect. There will be a Q&A at the end, so you'll be able to ask whatever questions that you want. But let's go ahead and get started. So number one, congrats on showing up. I literally always say this because so many people, right, either made some sort of excuse or for whatever reason, also life happens obviously too, but for whatever reasons they didn't show up. And so you just showing up here shows that you're really motivated and that you're ready to go and that you're ready to do this, okay? We're ready to learn, right? So seriously, I'm so glad that you're here. I love doing these things. I just feed off of the energy of everyone, especially like when we get to the live Q&A. So I'm just happy that I get to do this with y'all. Okay, so just a little bit about me. My name's Olivia Tati. I call myself a recovering engineer. I used to be an engineer for many, many years. Got my bachelor's, did my master's, went into the industry, and then decided it was not for me. So I quit cold turkey, became a real estate investor and coach. I have a 7-figure real estate portfolio. I'm a serial traveler. I've been to 52 countries. I got to 50 of them before I turned 25. And then after that, now I've kind of been more so slow traveling and going back to places that I love. I'm also an interior designer. I'm a YouTuber and content creator and a digital nomad. Now, the thing that's always so important for me, especially whenever I'm looking to learn from other people, is that it's so important to learn from people who are actually doing it now and not just people who have done it before. Just because, especially when you get into both the travel and the real estate space, things are so different than what they were 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? So making sure that you're actually learning from someone who is actually doing it now is so, so, so key. So hello from Oaxaca. I am here in Oaxaca in Mexico. I'm actually staying at this really cool co-living space. These are some people that are at my co-living. But you know, I have my properties that are kind of running themselves back in the US. So I'm excited to talk to you all about that and kind of how I use real estate investing to travel and how it's possible even with 1 or 2 or like a really small portfolio. You know, you don't need 100 units. You can do it with just a few properties. So first, I'm just going to tell you a little bit how I even got started in this. So as I told you before, I used to be a chemical engineer. I got my bachelor's in chemical engineering, my master's in engineering and technology management. I was one of those oil and gas engineers going out on the rigs, like around, I'd be on a platform with like 60 other men and maybe 2 females. Just such a fun time. But basically after grad school, I was $25,000 in credit card debt and I started working my corporate job and just noticed that I was really struggling still to pay it off. I was like, what is happening? I just didn't really have the financial literacy that I needed in order to really, you know, take over control of my life and kind of go forward from there. And I also just was depressed. I was taking Lexapro for the first time. And if you know me, like I am not a very depressed person. Like that's just like not my nature. So the fact that I was getting to that point where I just didn't even want to wake up anymore, that just, you know, really rocked me, right? And so the funny thing is I always knew deep down that I was not meant to be a chemical engineer. I was kind of just following the path that was laid out there for me, right? Like my parents told me to be an engineer, that it was a good job, that it could pay 6 figures. I was like, okay, that sounds fantastic. And so I even included a little picture here from June 2017. Hey, if everyone could mute their speakers or themselves, that would be great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so yeah, so I included a little sticky note here from June 2017 where I literally wrote things I could be as well as an engineer because I didn't want to say other than an engineer because I was having, you know, an existential crisis. But just know that if you're that person who's kind of sitting in your job and you're like, I know I'm not supposed to be here, you're not alone. So many people are in that position. And that's kind of why I love, you know, real estate investing and using real estate to kind of fund your dreams because it's so possible. But basically, when I was $25,000 in credit card debt, I came to this realization. I was like, number one, I don't want to be in this job forever. Number two, I really need to pay off this debt, right? And so I started studying to get my real estate license. But the whole point of it wasn't necessarily to get my real estate license. What ended up happening is I discovered real estate investing and how much that could completely change your life. So I literally made it my mission to pay off my credit card debt within a year. I ended up paying it off actually in 8 months, which is pretty wild. And then putting offers in on properties right after that. So within the next year, I sold enough properties to pay off all of that credit card debt. And then I got on a contract on my first property. And that really spearheaded everything for me. And what we're going to be talking about a lot today is honestly that first property, which was such a gold mine. And they're still out there in today's, even in today's interest rate environments too. So yeah, I pretty much went from an engineer to an engineer and a part-time real estate agent to now a full-time real estate investor with no real ties to having to be anywhere. I can kind of go wherever I want and whenever I want, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, so it's all about, this is what I say, it's not even just about the financial freedom, it's the location freedom, and it's the time freedom more than anything else. I tell everyone last year, I 10x the amount of time that I spent with my family, which I'm just so happy about and so proud of about, just because, you know, people don't really talk about how much time gets spent on work, right? And not around the people that you love. And so that was such a big portion for me for fueling this whole dream, right? And so I wanted to include this here. I always say call your shot. So this is from March 24th, 2021. Ignore the horrible handwriting. Like I said, I used to be an engineer. But I literally wrote in my journal, I said, this is when I was in Tulum for a wedding or something like that. And I said, this is just firing me up more to get a duplex, rent out the other side, Airbnb my side, get Kiana, who's my dog, a passport, and go travel. This has just opened up my mind to so much. And I've so much, what did I say? And I've met so many cool, amazing people. And so that's where I say it's so important to set your intentions. This is something that I work on with my coaching students a ton. It's like, what do you actually want? Write it down, create a mood board. Like that is so important so that you can make sure you're actually driving your life in the direction that you want to go in. Okay, so putting this in here, start before you're ready. Surround yourself with other like-minded people who are trying to accomplish the same goals as you. That's really what I count. Like everyone always asks, how did you, do this so fast? Or how did you buy so many properties so fast and quit your job? And for me, it was really just surrounding myself with other people who had either done it or were striving to do the same thing. So that's why I say start before you're ready, because you never know where it's going to take you. Okay, now just quickly want to run by this. So this masterclass is going to be for you if you're chugging along in your corporate job, feel like your soul is slowly or quickly dying like I was, or you just hate trading 8 hours a day or more for a paycheck and just want a more passive way to build long-term wealth. Or maybe you just want to spend more time traveling and making memories with the people that you love. Or honestly, maybe you do like your job, but you just want to supplement your income, maybe be able to transition into a remote job. And maybe it's just because you know deep down that you were meant to do something more in life, but you just don't even really know where to start. Now, this masterclass is not for you. If you want to learn how to use credit card points to travel, remember, we're talking about real estate in this one. Using credit cards is a great way, but like the reason we're talking about real estate is it's about that long-term wealth too, not just the short-term gain. And if you do want to know more about credit points and card points to travel, feel free to DM me later. And I can also, transition you over to a few folks that I know who are seriously masters at that. If you don't like traveling, I really don't think you would be here if you don't like traveling, but I would just throw that in there. And then also, if you're not willing to get a little bit uncomfortable to reach your goals, like everything that's worth doing is going to take a little bit of being uncomfortable to get there. And then also, if you just hate the idea of building wealth through real estate. Now, real quick, drop a yes in the chat if you're excited to learn how to use real estate investing to travel the world. Yes, amazing. There we go. Let's do it. Awesome. Oh, I love it. Seriously love these masterclasses. They're so fun. Okay. So make sure you stay till the end. I am going to be giving out, actually, usually I only give out one, but I'm going to be giving out 2 exclusive gifts, which I'm pretty stoked about. And then we're going to be doing a live Q&A as well. So make sure to stay till the end. Okay, so drop it in the chat right now too. Why do you want to, what is your purpose for learning how to use real estate investing to travel the world? Like, what are you guys trying to do? Why are you doing this? Freedom of choice. Yep, totally. Financial freedom. Yep. Anyone else? Yep, I love that. My wife's travel. Oh my gosh, love that. Oh my, okay. I love, Brittany, that you said because corporate America is slowly killing my soul, because that was me. That was me too. Oh my gosh. And I love Costa Rica. Amazing. Okay, I love this. Okay, so here is a common misconception that buying a house will tie you down and hold you back. So I know for the longest time, I was so nervous to buy a house because if you're a traveler like me, you kind of like don't really want to have ties anywhere. Like, you know, the importance of a 401k and building wealth and stuff like that, but you're maybe a little skeptical about like putting down roots, right? Because that's what everyone associates buying a house with. And I'm here to tell you that buying a house, especially if you buy it as an investment property, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, it will not hold you back. It can actually propel you forward, okay? So literally, this is my February travel schedule. I just wanted to put this in here. And right now I have 4 properties. Like I was just in Nashville. I'm in Oaxaca now. I'm heading to Cabo this weekend. I've got a baby shower in Columbus. I'm heading to Fort Lauderdale for speaking at a conference. So this is all possible. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you know I was traveling literally all of last year. I think I spent a month at home. So this is all possible while investing in real estate, and more so using real estate to fuel that. Like, the reason I was able to do so much sustained travel is because of the income that I had coming in through real estate. So like I said, yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I'm pretty much traveling nonstop. So does anyone here also, I'm so curious, does anyone travel for work for whatever reason? You do? Okay. Yeah. So that's what really annoyed me when I was working in corporate is I would go travel and my house would just, you know, stay empty. Or like, even if, because I was going out onto the oil rigs sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for 3 weeks, and my house would just stay empty. Yeah, for conferences too. And it was like, there something, you know, I could be getting money from this, right? Like, I could be doing something to like pad my bank account, right? Instead of just leaving it empty. So this here was actually my first rental property. It was a duplex in New Orleans, Louisiana. This front unit is the rental unit, and this back unit is the personal unit. So I like stayed back here and it was front. And like, there's nothing super special about this property. It was $399,000, 2-bedroom, 1 bath on each side. The whole thing together is 1,600 square feet, okay? Now, these are my calendar bookings for this month. Right now, I literally like screenshotted this last night for my duplex in New Orleans. So this is my rental unit, pretty much fully booked. Actually, I even got an extension for this booking earlier today, and I'm expecting those to be booked up too within the next week or so. And then this is my unit. And actually here I have blocked off the dates that I'm home, except for this weekend. I have a friend that's staying at my property. I was like, you can stay there for free. Like, my property's doing fine. But so these are all bookings from Airbnb, VRBO, or even sometimes homestays as well. So literally in the month of February, so this month, it's turning out to be an $8,789 month for this one property. And my mortgage on it, my mortgage is $2,400. Utilities and expenses for both sides are a total of $2,700. So that's like a $6,000 profit in 1 month for this one property. And these are all screenshots of the different bookings. You'll see some of these overlap because of the 2 different units, right? But like, that is literally what's possible. Now, I will say, like, this is a pretty wild month for my duplex, right? Because it's Mardi Gras month. But even like in December, for example, I rented out my side while I was traveling and made an extra $3,000 just because I was renting out my side. And this was on top of the rent that was coming from the other side of the duplex. So who wouldn't want an extra like $3,000, right, to go travel for the month, right? Especially literally here in Oaxaca, my accommodation was about $400 for the whole week. I was like, oh wow, that pays for the whole trip. This is a no-brainer, right? And all throughout the year, because I was renting out both of my sides while I was traveling, I was cash flowing on my property the entire time. Now, don't just take my word from it. These are literally messages that I received this year from students. Like, this was last year, our Airbnb, one of my students, she she's already graduated from the program, but she ended up renting out her place as an Airbnb, but she wasn't even doing like day-to-day stays. She was doing month-long stays, because I know in some places, right, they don't even allow Airbnb bookings. You have to do a 30-day stay booking. So she was able to make an extra $2,600 that month on a regular month, right? And then here too, literally, this is Danielle. She was like, so right now it's the off season on Airbnb. It's doing better than expected, which is so freaking fantastic, right? So this is literally possible for anyone, okay? Now, I'm so curious, like, what are some questions you guys have about actually renting out your own homes? Do you guys have any questions? We're going to go through some stuff, but I'm curious what questions you have just right off the bat. Anyone? No questions? I'm a renter, totally. So it seems challenging. And we'll go over that too. Anyone else? Any questions? 100%. Safety and security, absolutely. Kat, if you want to drop in the chat any questions that you have, feel free, and then we'll do a live Q&A at the end. Safety, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go over this. So first thing, we're getting a lot of questions here. So as soon as I buy a house, I can put it on Airbnb. Yeah, pretty much. Actually, we'll go over, if you can save that question for the end, we'll go over that as well. I just wonder about personal belongings. Absolutely. How to monetize when Airbnb is inconsistent. Absolutely. These are all fantastic questions. And anything that I don't cover, make sure to ask it at the end during the Q&A. So you're probably wondering, just like, number one, how the heck do you even manage your properties while you're traveling, right? Like, you know, I'm in Mexico. I've got properties in New Orleans, other properties in Virginia. How are you doing this, right? So I spent less than, like, honestly, an hour is being generous, but a lot less than an hour a week managing 4 different properties. And in the last year alone, I've literally managed my properties from 6 different time zones, okay? Now, the first thing is going to be automation. And this goes into that safety and squatters things that we'll talk about as well. So I have so many different automation tools, and they're all super affordable, like $15 a month or $20 a month, nothing crazy. But for example, Hospitable, that's going to be a key one just for automatic messaging. When you're renting on Airbnb, or even when you're just renting with like a month-to-month renter, there's certain messages that every single guest is going to want, or every single renter is going to need. There's the check-in message, the check-out message. They need to know where the locks are. They need to know where everything's located, all of that. So you can actually automate about 95% of your messaging using a tool called Hospitable. And it can also sync your calendars. It's a really, really, really awesome tool. Then you've got cleaners, right? Because ideally, you're not the one cleaning your property. You've got cleaners in place. You run your numbers so that you can afford cleaners to clean your property using a tool called Turno, which has been so huge. I actually implemented this at the beginning of last year. And oh my gosh, the fact that I don't have to remember to Venmo my cleaners, and it's no extra cost to you as well, is huge, because what it does is it automatically syncs with your calendars, so they know and they can manage themselves pretty much. The big thing here, so the Schlage Encode Wi-Fi lock is one of my favorite locks. So that thing that you're saying in terms of squatters, what you can actually do is you can sync it with their booking, right? So it will only, the lock will only work for them with their specific code from the date that they check in to the date that they leave. And you can even set it to the time. So let's say their check-in is at 4 p.m. Maybe you want to just set it to 3 p.m. or just set it to 2 p.m. That way it gives like a little bit of wiggle room if they want to check in a little bit early and stuff like that. But you have control over that, and you can completely lock them out, okay? And also with these, there are backup keys as well. So you have different measures in case anything happens there. Also, for stays, anything less than 30 days, it's the Schlage Encode Wi-Fi lock. It's literally the best lock. I used to use a different lock, and then I changed all of my locks again to this lock because it's by far the best lock. And then Price Labs is dynamic pricing. So kind of like what I was telling you guys before, it's Mardi Gras month, right, in New Orleans, meaning you make a lot more money during Mardi Gras than you would during the summer in New Orleans, where it's really, really, really hot, okay? So you want to adjust your prices for that. So for example, in New Orleans, right, we've got so many different events in the spring, in March, February, April, May. So the prices during that time are going to be a lot higher than during the summer, but you don't want to have to be the one who's constantly looking and changing the numbers and changing the prices. You can actually have that set up automatically. Now, the other big thing is your boots on the ground team. Okay, when I bought my duplex, I set it up as if it were a property that was 600 miles away, okay? Now, the reason that you want to do this is so that you have the flexibility to travel, okay? You don't want to be the one that's cleaning your property. You don't want to be the one that's fixing things. You want to set it up as it is, as if it is an investment property. And so having that boots on the ground team is so key. My cleaners are pretty much like my property managers, right? They're the ones who are going in there every few days, sometimes once every 2 weeks or once a month, depending on how long the person is staying for. They're the ones who are seeing if something is broken, if the tenant is bad, right? Like they are the eyes and ears of the property. Having your maintenance person on call, right? Like I have a guy in each of my locations where I'm like, hey, this broke, can you go and fix it? You don't want to be scrambling last minute. So making sure you have those all set up, like even when you get under contract on a property, I always say, okay, like now is the time, let's start forming our team. Pest control people, whoever else that you need, you want a roster of those people because they're going to be your eyes and ears. Because at the end of the day, does anyone here know how to change a faucet? Like I shockingly do because I've done like renovations by myself before, but most people, don't know how to change a faucet or how to change, electrical wiring if there's a problem there. So you want to make sure that you have a good boots on the ground team. Now, here's another thing, like you're probably wondering, where the heck do you put your stuff? So this can be as simple or as complicated as possible. I will show you literally where I keep my stuff right now. And it's never been a problem. So this is a closet in my bedroom. I legitimately use a lock and chain. I just shove everything that's important to me into my closet with a lock and chain and take the key with me. And I hide like a couple keys in different places in case I lose the key while I'm traveling, right? But it doesn't have to be complicated, okay? You just need a space where you can put things. Now, let's say you don't have an extra closet, right? Or you don't think you can fit all of your stuff in a closet. There are so many different other options, right? There's a basement or an attic. You can put it in a closet like I do. You can put it in a cupboard. Maybe you can lock off a full bedroom. And that may just mean that you have to change the handle, right? But you can lock off the bedroom, or you can even get a storage unit, or you can, ask one of your friends or your neighbors like, hey, can I stash a couple things at your house while I'm traveling? A lot of people won't actually care. So there's so many different options. And if that is what's stopping you, right, it's such a minimal thing that you can definitely find a way. Like there's always a will. Like I tell one of my students, everything is figure outable, okay? Now, the other thing you're probably wondering, how do you prevent squatters? So I know we talked about that a little bit with the Schlage and Code Wi-Fi lock, but also security systems, right? So I've got security cameras on all of my properties. Do not put security cameras inside your property. That is really creepy and really weird. But on the outside is totally, totally fine. Also, don't look at your cameras all the time, okay? Like if you're that kind of person, maybe give your login information to someone else to monitor your cameras because you don't want it to be stressful while you're traveling. And most of the time, like I rarely ever have to look at my cameras except unless like someone stole a package or something like that. But then another thing is, even if you're going through Airbnb or if you're just renting, like Airbnb is probably going to be your most lucrative, but not always. You can also do month-to-month rentals through Furnished Finders, or you can do a long-term rental. Let's say you're leaving for a year, put renters in your property, right? And the best way to do that if you're not going through a tool like Airbnb is tenant screening, right? So you can check to see if people have been evicted before, because if they have, might not be the best person that you want staying at your property, right? Because that kind of raises some red flags. Also, you can do a background, and these are all valid things that you can do. You can do a background check on them, check to make sure that they're on time with their payments, all of that. So all of that kind of factors in to because at the end of the day, you are the landlord, right? Or you are the person, even if you're renting, right? You are the person who is subletting out the property. So you want to make sure that the people who are coming to stay at your property are not gonna, miss out on payments or end up staying there because they're squatting or whatever it is. Now you're also probably wondering, what if I can't rent it on Airbnb? So there are so many different options. I mentioned a couple before, just like monthly rentals, but you could even do what is it, house sitting and pet sitting, right? So I do a lot of house swapping actually. So these are a few different like websites that you can use. I really like Kindred, and we'll talk about Kindred a little bit more later. But you can use Home Exchange, Nomador, Trusted House Sitters. I know people who literally spend months pet sitting. They just go from place to place, and they stay at like mansions, honestly, for free, just because they're pet sitting in Portugal or something like that. And then there's house swapping. So the cool thing about house swapping is you get credits to stay at other people's properties. And sometimes it's like a proper one-on-one house swap. Sometimes it's literally just you get credits, okay? So here are some things you do want to take into account when you're prepping your house, okay? You want to throw out all of your perishable foods, clean out the fridge. I always make sure to also schedule my cleaner to come right when I'm leaving, so that she does a full proper deep clean. I personally just like to have a separate set of rental towels and sheets, just because I don't know, I just like my sheets and don't want people using my sheets, right? So I lock those away, and then my cleaner puts the rental sheets and towels. You lock all of your personal belongings away. I would also change out some personal photos. I usually keep like one personal photo in there with my dog, just so people know that it's like my personal home. But you don't want like a bunch of pictures of yourself everywhere, and like someone comes to stay and it's kind of weird and creepy. And make sure that your house is stocked with supplies too. So toilet paper, soap, conditioner. If you're doing an unfurnished rental, that's not going to matter as much. But if you are doing a furnished rental, at least for the beginning of their stay, for like the first couple days, make sure you do provide those things, just because it's a really nice touch. And you want people to like come back. You want people to want to come back, right? Like I have people who I've rented to years ago who are still like, oh my gosh, your house is the only house that I want to stay at in New Orleans or in Virginia. I'm coming back next year. And they have, and that's always great, because you can then even, you start to plan that in. It's like, oh, so-and-so comes every year. Amazing. I'm going to take a trip then, right? Okay, so right now, what is stopping y'all from renting your own house to travel? And I know that Celeste, you said because you're renting right now, right? That's one of the, how about the rest of y'all? What's stopping you guys from renting your own houses whenever you travel? I know there's some lag time, but that's okay. Live in an apartment. Yep. I'm guessing you're renting. Home repairs, totally not allowed in your town. Currently renting. New York City apartment, not allowed. Totally, totally. Okay, so it sounds like most of y'all are renting. And so that is always going to be the biggest problem, right? For people whenever they want to do this, right? They want to rent their houses, but for whatever reasons, the rules and regulations kind of state that they're not allowed to, which is really freaking annoying, right? When when you're living in your property, it's like, why does it matter? So that's always so frustrating. And so here's the thing, I will say, this is so much easier when you do actually own your own property, because you are now in control. Now, there are still rules and regulations, obviously, like around Airbnb. Totally. This is why I don't like to buy. Personally, I don't like buying in a HOA either. You can still do it, obviously. And if someone finds a really good deal, go for it. But I'm kind of the same way. I just like to have as much control over my property as I possibly can. Now, we already actually answered this. Who here is still renters? So I think most of y'all are still renters here. Some of y'all are homeowners. Here's the thing. Don't be the broke backpacker, okay? So this was me a few years ago, right? You were like, I'm so over it. I'm going to take off and travel for a year, or travel for a few months, or even if you're going on like a trip for a week, right? You got to go, you blow your money, then you get home, you're like, oh man, now I got to make all this money back, right? And so this is why I love using real estate, right? Because you always have that consistent cash flow coming in, okay? You don't have to be the broke backpacker who has to end their travels, right? So this is really why I like house hacking. So you can do this both if you live in a single family home, or like I did, which is house hacking in a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex or something with a basement or something that has multiple bedrooms. This doesn't just have to be, a duplex or a triplex. But for anyone who doesn't know, house hacking is when you actually buy a property, live in a part of it, and then rent other parts of it out so that your tenants or guests can help you pay the mortgage. And literally, like I went to one of the biggest real estate conferences last year, and they said that the #1 form of real estate investing suggested by these multimillionaire investors was house hacking, right? Because there's so many creative ways that you can do it. Sometimes, yeah, you may have to get a little bit uncomfortable and live in it for a year, or maybe instead of living in it for a year, you buy the property and then you go travel for the year. No one's gonna like come and hunt you down, you know? I did not live in my first property that I was house hacking for a full year. I ended up starting to travel 8 months in, and I was just like traveling for a year after that, right? So some of the best strategies to house hack are gonna be roommates. So if you get like a 5 or 6 or 7 bedroom house, I know those are really big numbers, but even if it's a 4 bedroom house, or if it's a 3 bedroom house that has a loft that you can kind of close off, you know, that's such a great way to kind of have your mortgage paid for you and get additional income off of that too. Or something with a loft or a basement. If in your area, those make sense. In New Orleans, they don't have lofts or basements. But for example, in Chicago, I know that's a big thing. In Colorado, I know that's a big thing. An accessory dwelling units. I literally just got off a phone call earlier today with someone in Houston who is building duplexes with accessory dwelling units in the back, which is huge. Basically, an accessory dwelling unit is just another small property, usually a studio unit. Sometimes it can be a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom behind the house, and it's completely detached, or sometimes it can be attached to the property as well. And then you've got the regular multifamily, or duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Now, you don't want to go over 4 units because then you go into the commercial space and then you can't get those better lending terms. You get better lending terms whenever you're getting like a residential home. And Kat, that's a fantastic question, and we can chat. Make sure to bring that to the Q&A, okay? Okay, so benefits of house hacking, right? It reduces your house hacking costs. So I went from paying $1,800 a month in rent to not paying any mortgage at all, not paying any rent, not paying any mortgage. So that's another $1,800 back in my pocket. And then on top of that, making cash flow, right? So because the property, whenever it's rented out, the rent covers the mortgage, and then it covers more than that, it's huge, right? That's extra cash in your own pocket. Now, I know, for example, if you're living in somewhere that's really expensive, I know we've got people in New York City, we've got people in LA and California. Sometimes the idea of house hacking seems a little far-fetched, right? You're like, well, houses here are $1 million. I'm not going to buy a property here. That totally makes sense. The concepts still work when you buy a property out of state. So I purchase properties out of state. The only difference there is that you do have to put a little bit more down. But like, for example, we've got a student, Liz, in my coaching program. She lives in New York, and she's like, I cannot afford a $1 million property in New York City. And even she's looking at co-ops. She doesn't really love the idea of co-ops, and it just doesn't really make any sense. So instead, she went to upstate New York. She found a property for $90,000 that's going to be able to cash flow like $500 or $600 a month, which is huge because that's another $500 or $600 in your pocket. Okay. Now, also real estate, I say almost passive income. If you have owned real estate before, you know that it's not fully passive, right? You do have messages you have to answer every once in a while. You do, and I'm going to be real with y'all. You do have things that come up, like literally yesterday, our cleaner, like there was an error in our booking system, and so the property wasn't cleaned, and so our cleaner didn't get over there. But it didn't matter. Like literally all I had to do was message my cleaner and be like, hey, the property wasn't clean, can you go over there? And she went over there. No big deal. Right? So I think sometimes a lot of people kind of blow some of these like, oh, this isn't passive, blah, 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 out of proportion, right? Because let me tell you, it is a whole lot more passive than working my corporate job and having to like commute like 2 hours a day to go sit at an office desk every day, you know? Now, with house hacking in particular, you do have that low entry point. So you can buy a property with as little as 0% down, 0 to 5% down, which is really huge. But if you are buying an investment property that is not something that you're going to live in, you will usually have to put in 15 to 25%, depending on what your income level is and depending on like your credit score. There are different like factors that lenders take into consideration. But here's the other benefit of house hacking, or just really owning real estate, right? You've got appreciation. I remember when I was first looking at properties, I was looking at some duplexes that had been purchased 30 years ago. and they were $40,000. Do you know how much they were selling them for 30 years later? $550,000. I was like, excuse me, what? That is insanity. And that's why I say, like, literally, real estate is a long-term game. It really is. And there are still so many like wonderful short-term gains that you can get from it, like using it to travel, but the real wealth is built over a long period of time. Then you've got that equity pay down. By equity pay down, what I mean is your renters are the ones who are paying down the loan on your property. That's not coming out of your own pocket. I've literally never had to pay a mortgage out of my own pocket. That has just strictly come from income that's coming in from my rental properties. And then you have huge tax benefits. Like I got a tax refund for, I think it was like $17,000, something ridiculous last year, even though it was like the most amount of money that I'd ever made simply because of real estate, okay? And then, especially with house hacking, it's just a low barrier to entry to landlording and entrepreneurship. But think about this, even if you're buying a $90,000 property, let's say like Liz is in upstate New York, right? 20% of $90,000 is what, $18,000, $20K, right? Which is still such a really low barrier to entry there. Now, as I was saying this before, if you are house hacking, you can put as little as 0 to 5% down on your first investment property and get your closing costs like almost fully covered as well, especially in today's market. Now, here's the big thing, right? Everyone's waiting for interest rates to come down, but like that is such a, I think that's a mistake for so many people, because when interest rates come down, we're going to see a buying frenzy, and you're already starting to see it because interest rates are coming down right now. So everyone's been waiting for, interest rates to get back into the fours. If you're around in everyone here was around in 2020 and 2021, interest rates were like in the 2s and the 3s back then, right? But the thing is it was impossible to get a property. If you look at my like last Instagram post that I put in 10 offers and got beat out every single time by cash offers, by people paying over asking prices, because they just knew that interest rates were so low and it was super competitive. They're like, oh my gosh, yes, right? So if you're waiting to buy, if you're like in a position where you can buy a property now, I'd really urge you to kind of start looking now, because this is the time to get a really good deal and to get properties $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 under asking price, okay? And then you can refinance later down the line to bring that interest rate down. But the whole key is to make sure that whenever you're running your numbers on your property, that the income still covers the mortgage, okay? So yeah, low interest rates means more competition, just an FYI. Okay, so what in general is stopping y'all from getting your first property that pays for your travels? Anyone? Down payment, worried about cost. Anyone else? Haven't picked a market yet, credit and money, totally. Everybody is struggling to make income off of them. Ooh, and we can talk about that a little bit more. Worried about keeping the unit full, lack of multifamily properties. Yeah, totally. And these are all super, super fair questions. So fair. So like some of the like common questions that I hear too is that a lot of the time aspiring investors are paralyzed. Either they're worried about like a house that may keep you stuck, right? Or they're terrified because they just don't really know where they want to buy a house. They don't know where they want your forever home to be, but we kind of, seen here, you don't need to buy your forever home. Maybe you're terrified of making a big mistake. And hold on, I'm going to mute you real quick. Just making a big mistake. You don't know, where to buy. What does a good investment look like? You don't really know where to start. And those are all so normal. Okay. Now, here's the thing. You want to shift your mindset. You're not buying a house. You're buying an investment property. This isn't just a personal home. You can move whenever you want. You can get all the advantages of real estate investing. And you can build long-term wealth, and you don't have to go broke while traveling too. And I totally understand the issues with, making sure to keep your unit full. That's why we do analyses. That's why we have a calculator. That's why we look into the market that we're investing in to see what are most people seeing in the market, right? What are occupancy rates? Are they staying full in the summer or are they not? And there are so many different tools out there. Like for example, for Airbnbs, it's AirDNA. for other properties, you like reach out to a realtor to see what are the vacancy rates in the area. Lack of multifamily properties too. So here's the thing, it's like you don't need, it doesn't need to be a multifamily property, right? It can be a single family home, or you can get creative, right? So I have been looking at properties where I end up, it's a single family home, but I'm gonna lock off the basement, maybe like change things around a little bit, and you put that work in to make it so that it works more so like a multifamily investment property, even though it isn't normally supposed to be like that. Now, the problem is most people kind of go at it alone, right? They don't really know where to start. There's no clear action plan. There's no personalized support. And you're kind of in a little bit of analysis paralysis, right? So wouldn't it just be so much better to kind of have a clear roadmap on how to actually get your first and second property and use that to travel the world and network with a bunch of experienced real estate investors to weigh in on your decisions, just have a supportive community. So these are literally some things that like literally Corey sent that to me this past weekend, which was awesome. These are just people who are in like my Wanderlust Wealth Academy. Because I'm telling y'all, my biggest passion is just helping young women, like, or not even young women, just women in general, kind of take control over their lives, start investing in real estate, build these like wealthy legacies for themselves. Because it's just like, there's just so much out there, and owning properties gives you that freedom a lot of the time if you run the numbers the way that you need to so that you're actually cash flowing. So before we get to the end here, so I've got not one, but two gifts for you, okay? So the gift of traveling for free. So for anyone who either does own a home or is a renter, right? Renters are allowed as well. So there's actually properties here in New York City. There's an app that I really love called Kindred. It's like an exclusive app for people who have like really decent, your property doesn't have to be incredible, but it has to be like somewhat nice. Like you can't be falling apart basically. But it's a home swapping type of app pretty much. So you've got properties in Barcelona, Denver, London, where's this one? In San Francisco, all over the place that you can stay for free. Like, and the way that it works is you get credit. So I literally have 20 credits right now, and I'm planning on staying somewhere. I still haven't decided where I'm going, but I'm going to go stay at somewhere for free, just using these credits because I've rented out my property on Kindred for free as well for other travelers. And like some of these properties are so much nicer than mine. Like this one in London, I'm like, yes, I will happily stay there, you know, which is super, super awesome. So what I provided you is so it is an application process. So if you want to go ahead and go to Live Kindred, I don't actually know if it's Live Kindred or Live Kindred. You can go ahead and apply and type in ollie.tat. And basically they'll go through just like a screening process to see if your property qualifies. And then you can get put on the app, and you now have a free like home swapping app right there, which is super awesome. Like the only thing you have to pay is the cleaning fee. But if you're staying somewhere for like a week or 2 weeks or a month, right, the cleaning fee is like $100 or $200 max. Okay. You know, so it's such a freaking good deal. So make sure to go and do that. So that is gift number one. And then gift number two is I'm inviting you to book a free strategy call with me. Like this is literally no, like, what is it? No something tied. No strings tied. That thing. No strings tied. I'm just inviting you to book a free strategy call with me. So you can go ahead and use the QR code there if you take a picture of it. I will also put, no strings attached. Oh my gosh, thank you. You can go ahead and take a picture of it. I'll also make sure to put the link in the chat too once I can grab it over here. But basically, this is just a free strategy call for you. If you're interested in using real estate to travel, you know it's in your future, but just kind of near a clear roadmap or next steps, or maybe you're just ready to get started and need accountability and guidance on your next steps. Like I would love to help you. But there's more. So for the first 10 people, for the first 48 hours only, literally for the first 48 hours. And if you're the first 10 people, I am offering 60% off the Wanderlust Wealth Academy, which is my like signature coaching program. I love my coaching students. They're like, I always tell them like, even while I'm traveling, I still call into all of my coaching calls because I love them. I love helping y'all. And then you also get some courses on the back end. So you get the Wanderlust Wealth Academy free. You get everything with regards to setting up your properties remotely, managing your properties remotely, what to do when you're under contract, how to actually analyze your property. There's a full breakdown on how to do that, how to figure out how much rent you're actually going to be getting. as a long-term rental or as a short-term rental or as a medium-term rental, all of that. And then you do get the Wealthy Way Roadmap. That's for anyone who is looking to pay off any debt or save up for a property and they're just really struggling. I've kind of broken it down for you on the best way to do that. And then the Jet Set Invest Playbook. So this is coming out this next month. It's all about travel hacking, being a digital nomad. It goes into credit cards. It goes into other travel hacks that are out there, like using Turo or using Peerspace, and other digital nomad. Like, for example, I'm staying at a digital nomad co-living place. All the ones that I like are going to be in there. So you'll get access to all of this as well. But those bonuses are only going to be included if you are one of the first, 10 people to sign up within the next 48 hours. So we have made it. We are on the Q&A section. So once again, there is the QR code over there. I want to see, let's see. I'm going to do this real quick. Hold on. Let me stop sharing just for a second, and I am going to put the link for my Calendly in the captions. And then if we do, let's do a raised hand and we can go from there in terms of questions, Q&As, all of that. Like, I will happily answer. Just give me 1 second. I'm just getting the Calendly link. Sorry about that. I had it up here before, but then I don't. Okay, let me drop this in the chat for y'all, and then I'll go back to also sharing my screen. Okay. See, this is the problem with not having your dual monitors. It changes everything, y'all. I broke mine in Portugal, which is why I don't have mine right now. Note to self, make sure that your dual monitors are always, or your monitors are protected. Okay, let's share my screen again. Okay. Oops. Where am I going? Present. There we go. Share screen. Okay, can everyone see the screen again? You good? Okay, don't forget, first 10 people within the next 48 hours. Oh my gosh, okay, Veronica, fabulous. Love that. Yay, people are booking. Okay, Kat, go ahead. What's your question? And you can take yourself off of mute. Feel free. Like, I love seeing faces.
I have a few questions. First one would be about the camper, right?
Yes.
Like, I know I'm about to get a camper and travel. So I guess the first thing is like, one, I don't know where I want to buy a house, but I do know that like, if I can live in the camper and rent out that house.
I think that's a phenomenal idea. And honestly, you're in a great situation where you can buy anywhere. Like, if you don't really know where you want to be, it doesn't really matter. Like, I have properties in Virginia. I had never been to Virginia before. I still only go like once a year to check on the properties. And even then, we still haven't even gone this year because we're like, we don't really need to, you know? So you can literally buy it anywhere. I would say if I were you, buy somewhere where cash flow is the best. Houston's a great area. Sometimes in, the Midwest can be a good area. And like, that's something we kind of go into, right? Is figuring out what area makes sense for you. What area do you feel called to actually invest in too?
So
Ariana. Yeah.
Right. So as a lender, I've come from a real estate background, was a real estate agent, I've talked to multiple lenders, and it's like, going off that New York scenario, right? If I am living in X place, or I have a on-site job in X place, and I don't own property, like say, right, I live in the Boston area. So I have an on-site job in Boston. I live in Boston.
Yep.
Lender is going to give me a loan for a primary residence in Chicago.
Yes.
That's not going to make sense. So it's like, but I can't afford to buy a house on a single mortgage in Boston. So hypothetically, can I really buy wherever I want?
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got a couple of options there. So number one, Chicago actually does, like, I have a student in my coaching program who is investing in Chicago, and she literally, like, within the first 2 weeks, she'd been looking for a while, but then within the first 2 weeks, she was able to find 2 properties that worked as a house hack in Chicago. And then, but another thing too is then I would just go out of state and buy it conventionally, right? Or buy it using either, if you can avoid a DSCR loan, I would, but I would go 15% down investment property loan that in that case, and just go somewhere where it is a lot more affordable. So kind of like Liz, right? One of my students, she lives in New York, right? But she's purchasing in upstate New York where she can find properties that are 70,000 to 250,000, which is a lot more affordable for her, you know?
So like you can live in a city and work, or say I could live in New York City, rent in New York City, work in New York City, but then buy a property as an investment property elsewhere, just not a
Yep.
primary.
Exactly. Unless, and like, are you single or do you have or a partner or what's
That's the thing, is like that's why like I don't think I can stay in New England, because I literally buying it as my primary residence. I refuse to live in a shack.
totally, totally. And that's where for you, I would honestly go out of state. That's going to be, so there's one of my friends, Soli, she lives in San Francisco, and San Francisco prices are absolutely absurd. She started buying properties when she was 22. She's, I think, 26 right now. She owns 30 properties that she purchased out of state, you know? So like you can definitely go out of state. That is what I would do if where you live is like absurdly expensive, or even, and not even just out of state, but like maybe it's just outside of the city. So for example, Liz is buying in New York, just not in like upstate New York, right? She's just not buying in New York City.
Okay, thank you. I think that makes sense. I just like to personally have my real estate license in the state that I buy. But hypothetically, if you buy in 10 states, I can't have my real estate license in 10 states. So I would
Yeah.
have to.
So I guess what's your reasoning for that?
So it's like, say, I used to live in Tennessee, right? I had my real estate license in Tennessee. So if I want to buy in Texas, I would prefer to get my real estate license in Texas, because you make the commission off the purchase of the house when you represent yourself.
Totally.
If you buy in 10 different states, I'm not going to have a real estate license in 10 different states. So then I just have to have the referral.
Yes. And that's what I do. So for example, I did not go get my license. So I have my real estate license as well, right? In Louisiana. I did not go get my license in Virginia. I'm moving my home base to Colorado, which is also an expensive place, like in Denver, right? This is where I say, even expensive properties, it does work. You just have to get a little bit more creative. But I don't plan on getting my license in Colorado because I don't want to, I don't need to, right? I can do referrals, and that's kind of what I've structured that side of my business on, is just referrals. But I will, if you are familiar with the process of purchasing homes, right? And if you're an agent, you're just going to be more on top of the real estate agent in that area. And you also don't even need to go through a real estate agent. You can just reach out to the seller directly and represent yourself. It's totally fine. You don't need to have your license to do that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, Celeste, what questions do you have?
Hi, thank you so much for putting this on. This has just been so informative. I have a few questions as well. The first one is a quick one. It's really just around, I was curious if you've ever had partners that you've gone in together.
Yep.
And what that experience was like with you.
I have, yeah. So I partnered on one of our properties. And I mean, honestly, it was great. Like, so I'll tell you this. So how I found my partners is I literally sent out, I think, 20 texts to my friends saying, hey, I'm thinking of buying a property and I'm looking for people to bring in the capital. Like, and I just kind of like went on a little spiel. Would you be interested? And I had like 4 out of 20 people say yes, which was perfect, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, amazing. Like, and literally, and when you're partnering, there is so much more that goes into it. So if you're doing that, I would definitely recommend either getting a mentor or someone, just because there's legal things you need to put in place. You should create an LLC. I would recommend that. Just to keep you guys protected, or if you need to, liquidate, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
You want to get an operating agreement in place as well. But yeah, it is so possible. It's so doable. You just need to be very clear from the beginning on how you want to structure it. Is it going to be a 50-50 partnership based off of equity? Or is it going to be a 50-50 partnership based off of cash flow? Or is it someone's going to bring the cash, the property is going to be 40% their ownership or 60% their ownership. And then you're not going to bring any of the cash. You're going to do all the work for it. Right.
Mhm.
So they're here, and everyone kind of wants like an exact breakdown of this is how you do partnerships. If you ask real estate investors, there's no like standard way to do partnerships. Everyone does it differently. I'm happy to share the way that I did it as well. Like, feel free to DM me and or like book a call or whatever. I know a couple of you have already, actually a good few of you have already booked a call. So make sure to go in and book a call now.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to share exactly like how I've structured it on previous partnerships. And it was honestly a learning process for me too, because I plan on doing a really big deal next year. I'm doing a boutique hostel. That's my big 2025 goal. And I plan on bringing on partners for that, right? Because it's probably going to be a $2 million project at least. So I think partnering is such a great way to do it, especially if you don't have the capital, right? Or even if you just want to like spread the risk, right? I think that's a great way to do it. Just know you may either be getting a little bit less cash flow from it, but honestly, the most important part for that first property is getting your foot in the door and getting yourself in the game, because you don't want to be that person 2 years from now that's like, ah, damn, I wish I bought a property in 2024, right? Or that person was so lucky because they bought a property in 2007 or 2015. Like, no, they just got in the game. At the time, they probably thought that the property was really expensive and they were like, why are people doing this? I don't know, I'm nervous. Everyone starts like that, okay? But there's a reason why the wealthiest people in the world say real estate investing is like one of the best things you can invest in, right?
Yeah, so you actually kind of touched on this a little bit. I was thinking about LLCs as well. I was curious, your experience, like, do you have like a holding company where each of the units or each of the like duplexes or, properties essentially are their own kind of LLC or something like that? What does that structure look like for you?
Yes. So I have a holding company, and so I have it a little differently because I've got properties that are just under my name. Those I have completely separate. And then I've got properties that are with partners. Those I have a holding company, and then we have an LLC for the actual property. Now, we use a personal investment loan to purchase the property. So the loan is actually under one of the investors' name, but the title of the property, we then quit claim into an LLC. So that way the property is technically owned by the LLC, and then us as the members, we are owners of the LLC, thus owners of the property.
Interesting. Awesome. And last one, sorry, I just,
No, you're good.
this one was around you. I think I might have just missed it, but you mentioned, one of my concerns is also like making sure it's, there's people in there regularly, like, leveraging Airbnb, leveraging, different sites, or even doing like a long-term rental. How are you ensuring, because I'm in LA, like I mentioned, so I'm like, there's no way I'm buying a property here, but I was
Totally.
thinking like Houston or like other places around the US. And I don't know Houston, right?
Yep.
So I don't know if you have, like, I would love to visit there and I can actually see myself possibly living there, but as far as making that bigger decision to buy a duplex, for example, I'm like, how do I make sure I choose the right neighborhood? How do I know that people are going to want to rent it in that neighborhood? What if like, it's a great property, but no one that visits Houston wants to go to the neighborhood, and I just didn't know that. And now I'm kind of like it'll feel like I'm screwed or something like that. Like, I don't know if you've, what feedback or advice you
100%. And I mean, that's, like kind of like what I said. So I bought property. I'd never been to Virginia, but property sight unseen there. And even honestly, even my New Orleans duplex, I put an offer on it like while I was in Nashville, and even in Colorado right now, I'm buying sight unseen, but it's really leveraging the boots on the ground team. And so like, for example, every student that's in the coaching program, I end up putting them in contact with so I'll go in and vet the realtor, make sure they actually understand real estate investing, what we're looking for, so that they have a good boots on the ground person just from the get-go who's able to advise you. I would say if you can, right, go and visit the property before, right? Or go and visit the location. If you're like, nah, I don't really have the time to do that, that's totally fine as well. Like I said, I have purchased completely sight unseen, never been to the place before as well. But if you want to, I would go visit the property and kind of get a lay for the land. That's what one of our other students, Marina, she lives in Atlanta and she ended up moving, but she wants to buy in Houston. She's never been to Houston and she doesn't feel necessarily comfortable right now buying sight unseen. which is totally fine. So she plans on taking a trip out there just to check it out, get the lay of the land, talk to the realtor. And then after that, if a property pops up later down the line, then she can put an offer in. But then I will say, for example, Houston, I actually know the area really well. I went to high school and college there. My family lives there and back every Christmas. So like anyone who ends up buying in Houston is under like good hands.
Oh, dope. That's good to know. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Anyone else have any questions? I know we're like a little bit over time here. But once again, if you haven't already, I know we've already got quite a few people that booked calls, but go ahead, book a call. The bonuses end at midnight in 2 days on the 15th. So book a call. Even like, I just want to see where you're at, see if I can help in any way, and just, have your questions answered that way. Like, and if you end up joining the coaching program, amazing. I know Ariana's like the sweetest. She's like, join. She's in my coaching program. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this was useful. Don't be a stranger, reply to emails. I'm like, someone commented the other day, she's like, oh, you're the one replying to emails. Like, yes, I do reply to my emails. But feel free to reach out. I love talking about this stuff and I love helping women, get started investing in real estate. But that's all I have. Bye, everyone. I appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you also for checking in. I was kind of surprised to get your message to see if I got the email. I was like, oh my God, no way. Like, thank you for that.
I know. I checked my email.
Yeah, thank you. Your profile stood out to me because I'm also an engineer in the oil refiner, like the oil industry. So I know what that feels like.
Yeah. Oh, girl. I know. And it's funny because we have like 4 or 5 engineers in the coaching program. And I'm like, I feel your pain, girl.
So, yeah, showed up and I was like, this is cool. Like, I need to know what's going on because it's a cool industry. Just not for me.
Why do you say it's not for you?
I mean, it's great. The company I work for is pretty good. It's up in Minnesota. It's not.
Oh, you mean the engineering company? You mean the okay, that makes way more sense. I was like, did you mean real estate investing wasn't for you?
Oh no. Oh my gosh, no, the job. Sorry, I was like, no, the job. I feel like I constantly have to convince myself that I'm okay.
Like I told you, I mean, I got on Lexapro and I had never had depression ever really in my life before that. And I was in just such a bad place for my job. And it's so funny because when I quit my job 3 months later, stopped taking Lexapro, I was totally fine, happy as can be. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, wow. For me, like personally, I'm interested in real estate is because freedom of time. Like, I haven't spent a lot of like the last 7 years with school and how far away my parents live. It's like I probably maybe see them once a year for a couple of those. And they're getting older and I'm like, wow, like you need money to live, but I don't want to be like, I don't know.
Totally. And there's so many other ways to do it. Like I always tell people, like me just being able to quit my job helped me just figure out what the heck I want to do with life.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how my Wanderlust Wealth Academy came about. Is I just really like my guiding North Star has always been helping young women. Even when I was engineer, it was helping young women, in STEM and get started and realize that they can do anything in life. And that's kind of how the Wanderlust Wealth Academy even stemmed, right? So
cool.
But I never would have done that if I didn't start investing in real estate and quit my job and have time and freedom to just think of what, what I wanted to do.
Yeah, now you could just like think about what you want to do instead of like trying to get through the day.
Exactly.
Well,
You should book a call, Sarah. I don't know if you already did.
I
know you did. Perfect.
Yeah,
amazing.
On the 21st. So
love that. Well, I cannot wait to talk to you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And Kimoy, you have a question? Go for it. Also, how do is it just Kim? Do I just say Kim? Do I say Kimoy?
Kimoy.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So I was wondering, how did you qualify to buy a house after you quit your job?
So a couple of ways. So the funny thing is when you quit your job, you have like basically almost a year period where it's still okay. So
Really?
yes, and not all lenders are going to allow this, but some lenders will. So the key is just to find the right lenders that will. There's also like I have lenders that will literally qualify you just if you have a offer letter. So let's say you like have an offer letter from a company, but you don't actually plan on starting, like she can qualify you just based off of your offer letter. There's so many different ways. And then now what I'm able to do, like, for example, I'm buying a property in Colorado. It's going to be like my own personal property. Right now I'm working with lenders to see if my business income qualifies or if I'm going to get a cosigner on the loan. We're still looking at seeing what options.
Okay.
But even if I have a cosigner on it, like it's still my property, my name's on title, they're just like a cosigner on the loan. And later down the line, when I have the full 2 years worth of business income, I can just refinance out of it. Just to my
Okay, yeah. Those are some options because I'm getting ready to quit at the end of this month.
Oh my gosh, girl,
I-
buy a property first.
I know I've been trying, I've been looking like feverishly, but
Oh my
yeah,
gosh, have
'cause I
you
already have everything. You know, I have the down payment, I have the good credit score.
girl,
I
you should
just
book a
need to get
call.
the
You should book a call
property.
because I want to work through that with you.
Okay, I'll book a call.